Did you speak with these astronauts about our future space exploration, and how are they feeling about that?
Well, the majority of them believe that the moon is the best staging area for future exploration of the rest of the solar system. They are less convinced that Mars is the place to go straight away, avoiding the moon, for the simple reason that too many things have yet to be solved. The radiation issue, it's a 9-month trip out there, and the radiation in deep space is far worse than it is in that cislunar corridor between the Earth and the moon. The other thing, of course, is that you have to live subterraneously, and then to be able to resupply a Mars base can only happen every 2 years. So the logistics of it are daunting. The other issue that, frankly, has yet to be fully resolved is whether or not men and women can live in deep space for an extended period of time.
Lots of questions, and perhaps a note of caution being sounded by the men who went to the moon.
I'd like to know what you feel as far as the responsibilities of representing mankind on this trip.
That's relatively difficult to answer. It's a job that we collectively said that was possible and we could do, and of course the nation itself is backing us, so we just sincerely hope that we measure up to that.
The whole Apollo program was designed to get 2 Americans to the lunar surface and back again to Earth safely. The enormity of this event is something that only history will be able to judge.
Apollo 11 has very simply been given the mission of carrying men to the moon, landing them there, and bringing them safely back.
I can feel it in here when it's on.
Okay, off like the colors, go down.
Go, I don't know.
Go. GNC, go. Econ, go. Surgeon, go. Captain Onward, go for landing.
Finger, go for landing, over. Roger, okay, go for landing. 30 feet, 2.5 now.
30 seconds.
4 forward, just to the right, now. 20 feet, 2.5. Forward, just to the right. Contact light.
gift. We were given a gift, this nearby body called the moon. We know a lot now about the moon that we didn't know back in the Apollo days, or even really just 20 years ago. One of the most important things we know about the moon today is that there's water there. It's in the form of ice. It's in the permanently shadowed craters on the poles of the moon. And water is an incredibly valuable resource. You can use electrolysis to break down water into hydrogen and oxygen, and you have propellants. Another great thing about the moon, another reason it's a gift, it's nearby. It's 3 days away. And you don't have constraints on launch, the 22 months kind of thing that you have with Mars. You can go to the moon just about any time you want. And of great importance for building large objects in space, the moon has 6 times less gravity than Earth. When you get resources from the moon, you can get them into free space at very low cost. It takes 24 times less energy to lift a pound off the moon than it does to lift a pound off the Earth. It's time to go back to the moon, this time to stay. You will see amazing things happen, and it will happen fast. I guarantee it. People are so creative once they're unleashed. And if this generation builds the road to space, builds that infrastructure, we will get to see thousands of future entrepreneurs building a real space industry.
Do you think, from your knowledge of the moon, having been there, that it is going to be possible in the foreseeable future to set up scientific bases there on anything like a large scale?
Oh, I'm quite certain that we'll have such bases in our lifetime. In many ways, it's more hospitable than Antarctica might be. There are no storms, no snow, no high winds, no unpredictable weather phenomena. And the gravity is a very pleasant kind of place to work in, better than here on Earth. And I think it would be quite a pleasant place to do scientific work, and quite practical.
What we are, what is out there, what is that moon, what is it like to walk upon it?
The Saturn V showed us that we could do it.
Standing on the surface of the moon, and you also see that amazing rocket leaving the launch pad.
This generation does not intend to founder in the backwash of the coming age of space. We mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it.
The pressure of producing the speech to draw to an end the first set of manned explorations on the moon fell on mission commander Eugene Cernan. He had prayed that when the time came, he would find words of power and purpose. As he surveyed the lunar landscape for the very last time, he simply spoke from the heart and closed a chapter of human courage, ingenuity, and discovery.
We'd like to uncover a plaque that has been on the leg of our spacecraft that we have climbed down many times over the last 3 days. So that when this plaque is seen again by others who come, they will know where it all started. Here man completed his first exploration of the moon, December 1972 AD. May the spirit of peace in which we came be reflected in the lives of all mankind.
And in terms of this year, of course, is a wonderful celebration anniversary of the landing. And in and around the same time, NASA's made some rather sad, certainly from Australia's point of view, and I'm sure from the US's point of view, sad statements about what its plans are for the future. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I'm substantially concerned about the policy directions of the space agency, which are in fact directed by the administration. And we have a situation in the States where the executive branch and the legislative branch, the White House and the Congress, are at odds over what the future direction should be. And so they're sort of playing a game, and NASA is the shuttlecock. They're hitting back and forth as both sides try to get NASA on the proper path. So I along with many of my colleagues, have interjected ourselves into these discussions and presented our perspectives to the American people through newspaper editorials, and to the Congress through testimony and hearings, and to the administration by correspondence, that we are trying to get on the very best path here. I think that we've made some progress, but there's much yet to be done, and I'll continue to interject myself into those roles.
There is now an increasing appetite to return, are interested in the moon as a potential source of raw materials. In particular, our lonely satellite is thought to harbour substantial deposits of cobalt, iron, gold, palladium, platinum, titanium, tungsten and uranium. However, the most valuable deposit could turn out to be a gas called helium-3 that could fuel future nuclear reactors. 3 deuterium power stations do have the potential to safely fuel the world in the future. Mining helium-3 or anything else on the moon would therefore require the construction and operation of a significant industrial infrastructure. Such a facility could be powered by the sun and may in part be constructed from lunar materials. In fact, the European Space Agency has already funded experiments with a massive 3D printer that may build future lunar dwellings by spraying a binder onto successive layers of powdered moon rock. If this ever happens, the moon may become a next great superpower, dependent on the Earth for some supplies, but dominating its economy.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
In particular about Apollo 8, which didn't land on the moon, but was the first time that humans went around the moon, and in addition to getting amazing photographs of the moon to lay the groundwork for landing on the moon, they also got the first photographs and the first real glimpse of the Earth from space. And just as you're saying, this realization of how small, how blue and green, how filled with life our planet is, those pictures of Earth from space, those first pictures of the Earth from space, really launched the environmental movement and apparently really changed some of the astronauts who were on that mission.
It did, absolutely. It was kind of a Galilean moment in reverse. They went to explore the moon and really discovered the Earth. They saw it as the real prize in the sky. And it altered their perception of time, of happiness. Suddenly, they realized that all of the earthly squabbles that we engage in are in effect meaningless. That the whole notion, when you're looking at the Earth from 240,000 miles out, you wonder whether it's even inhabited, let alone being able to pick your country on the globe. So the idea of countries, nations, borders, races, just became a ludicrous concept in their minds. It was, we are one planetary race.
Basil Hero, you've interviewed nearly all of the Apollo astronauts for this book, The Mission of a Lifetime, and this commonality of kind of the spirituality of it, the different view of our planet and the appreciation for our planet really comes through. Basil Hero, you ended up interviewing almost every living astronaut who went to the moon, as well as their colleagues, their loved ones. You've already mentioned Neil Armstrong as one person who really stood out to you. Were there others, and what made them stand out?
I would say Alan Bean, who was the fourth moonwalker and had become an artist, was also probably the most reflective thinker, along with Armstrong, of the bunch. And he made a very interesting point, and the same thing with Mike Collins, that we are living in the Garden of Eden and we have just yet to appreciate it, so that when they were out there for 10, 12 days in a vacuum-sealed environment and breathing nothing but pure oxygen, When they returned to Earth, they realized that they were, in fact, in paradise. And Jim Lovell, who was on Apollo 13, made an extraordinary statement. He said, you know, after 50 years looking back, the conclusion I've come to is that you don't go to heaven when you die, you go to heaven when you are born. And I talked to the dean of the Yale Divinity School, Greg Sterling, and I said, have you ever heard this formulation? He says, no, never. It's quite incredible. And interestingly, what has happened in the theology schools, there is a new movement called eco-theology, and it is a direct result of the Apollo missions and the photos that they took of Earth from deep space.